Welcome once again, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, to the Dr. Ruehl Show. I'm your host, Dr. Franklin Ruehl. Today we're going to ask if it's possible that ETs are inhabiting black holes, tell you about some unusual grave robbers, and critique the 1971 sci-fi flick, The Resurrection of Zachary, and cover other topics, time, of course, permitting. But first, black holes. And we have the trivia question of the day. Let me extricate it here from its paper prison. The question: what is the mass of the largest discovered black hole to date in terms of solar masses? Is it 4 million solar masses, 40 million, 4 billion, 40 billion solar masses, 4 trillion, or 40 trillion solar masses? All huge amounts, but which is the correct one? Now the only prize for the correct answer, one pat on the back that you'll have to administer to yourself, a heck of a lot better than a slap on the belly with a wet chalk. So is that your answer? 40 trillion solar masses? Not quite. The actual answer is 40 billion solar masses. An amazing number, and these supermassive black holes that are anywhere from 10 to 40 billion times the mass of our sun are called ultramassive black holes. And it's believed that some may exist out there, not yet discovered, that are 100 billion times the mass of our sun. Unbelievable. Now here's a black hole. The concept of black holes actually dates back to the 18th century, and the idea today is that any star that's 3 or more times the mass of our sun, when it dies and collapses, becomes a black hole. Called black because its gravitational power is so great that no light can escape from it, so it appears black or invisible. The term black hole is actually a misnomer, I believe. It should be called a black globe or black sphere. Now, we, in the 1980s, did not even know if black holes existed. Many astrophysicists were skeptical of their existence. Today, there's been a 180-degree turnabout. It's now believed that every single galaxy has a supermassive or ultramassive black hole at its core. And we're talking about 100 billion galaxies. And the concept now is that primordial black holes formed at the time of the Big Bang. That was 13.7 billion years ago. And that these black holes then served as the starting points for those 100 billion galaxies. We now believe there are several different types of black holes. The ultramassive, the supermassive that can be up to 10 billion times the mass of our sun, the so-called intermediates, 1,000 times the mass of our sun, the solar black holes, 3 to 10 times the mass of our sun, then microscopic black holes. And of course, because their gravity is so great, they're much smaller than, say, 10 million times the mass of our sun. Now, a Soviet scientist has argued that some black holes may actually contain ETs. Yes, ETs within black holes. Now, I should point out that while we think of black holes as being solid bodies like huge bowling balls, we really don't know anything about their internal structure. Some may be hybrid black holes that have safe zones within them. There could be actual structures within so that they're not absolutely solid. And there are 3 ways ETs could be within black holes. First, planets could have evolved within black holes, yes, and entities within them. Secondly, as stars were dragged into the black hole by its powerful gravity, the planets about it were not destroyed, and entities on those planets were able to survive. And then thirdly, advanced ETs may have deliberately entered black holes, perhaps to try to tap into their enormous energy. One idea is that they want to construct so-called wormholes, where you have one black hole at the one end, another at the other end, and traveling through the so-called wormhole, which is actually a tunnel, they could traverse space and time, go beyond the speed of light, travel to other destinations throughout the cosmos, perhaps other times and other dimensions. So certainly I think it's a possibility. I should point out that there's another idea that some black holes are dormant from time to time. That would be an excellent time to enter them. Now, while some astrophysicists are skeptical of this idea, I'm certainly open to it. I point out that while it may sound like science fiction, today's science fiction often becomes tomorrow's science fact. So the idea of ETs within black holes certainly within the realm of feasibility. Very intriguing idea. Now, it's time for Cosmic Theater. In today's entry, the 1971 sci-fi flick, The Resurrection of Zachary Wheeler. Bradford Dillman plays a U.S. senator who's been critically injured in an auto accident. He's secretly flown to a subversive base in Alamogordo where doctors James Neely and Angie Dickinson bring him back to life. Investigating this is reporter Leslie Nielsen. Now, without further ado, roll tape! Yes!
Thank you. Excellent. Senator, by rights, you should have been dead 2 days ago. Even if the car accident hadn't occurred, your life expectancy was only about 3 more years.
What do you mean?
Your aorta had a critical aneurysm. This gray spot in your lungs is incipient emphysema. This is your duodenum. Those ulcers make it look like a road garden.
Sounds pretty bad.
Inside, look like that. Your insides are that. Don't worry, leave the person.
You've got to be kidding, Doctor. You mean you're trying to tell me I had a heart transplant?
You have had an entire internal support system transplant.
Look, I'll be damned if you're going to use me for a guinea pig.
So you really have been. We had no choice. When we got you, we were pretty much of a mess. Halfway measures wouldn't have done.
So, I was brought here because this is where the donor was.
You might say that.
Is there any chance of rejection?
Absolutely not. Cheers, like that.
How can you be so sure? Huh?
The donor was your identical twin.
Oh, no, you're lying, Doctor. I'm an only child. I am, too.
But you're not unique to the universe. I imprinted your DNA molecular structure on a compatible life form. After assimilation by osmosis, I transferred the organs to you.
I don't believe you. I don't believe any of it.
No. Here, have a look, Senator.
Don't look! Oh, God, dang, no! Oh, how can they show? We don't show things like that on our
Put it
program.
simply,
Oh,
we can grow human life.
that was horrible.
Or somas, as we call them. A soma is simply a synthetic person, just a body. It contains all the organs present in a human being, but aside from having life, it's not human. It has no mind, no intellect, no soul, if you will. Every one of them is identical, except that when one is injected with a DNA structure of an intended recipient, it becomes completely compatible with them. Actually takes on a resemblance. This compatibility eliminates the rejection syndrome.
But what happens to them then after the operation?
They're dead, naturally.
What do you think happens?
Then surely you've killed them.
No.
Well, yes, in a manner of speaking, but we don't really think of it that way. They're just organ banks.
Unbelievable. It's
I'd like to
absolutely
see it.
unbelievable.
Do you remember my mentioning your twin the other day?
Oh, yeah.
Mother. You experienced very few other people have ever had.
You're going to see a soma.
Well, you see, when you were brought in, your injuries were so massive, we programmed 2 somas for your transplant. They both expired, and we thought we needed a third in case complications. That soma is still programmed. Fix yourself, then. He's conditioned to respond to the bell. Senator, meet your third twin. After administering, it takes approximately 12 hours for the soma to ingest, and then physical changes begin to occur. Since he has your bone DNA developed, of course. He has a brain, but it has a very limited capacity, only capable of controlling motor activity. He's completely without experience or knowledge. But he's not unhappy, you know. You have to experience happiness to know the opposite.
That's Leslie Nielsen, the reporter who sneaked into the compound. Near the soda. I could have played Leslie Nielsen. More sugar. Give me sugar too.
My God, what the hell have they done to you?
Make him a sugar lover.
Look, I'm your friend.
Yeah, sure.
I'm sure you can see now why none of this can be revealed. No, hold on. This is fantastic. I mean, this is too big to be locked up out here in the desert. I can't fit in this story. Wait a minute. Yes, you go ahead and you get your story out. And people will listen and they will believe you.
Ingrate, they saved their life.
Every step of the way.
You're Ingrate.
I want to make this absolutely clear for once and for all. If either of you breathes one word about this operation or what we are doing, I will have you totally discredited and put away. Is that absolutely and totally clear?
That's Robert Wilson.
What does that mean?
One of the village.
You're going to kill us all?
Excuse me, Dr. Reddy. We have an urgent call for you from Washington.
Oh, excuse me. Yes, Dr. Rennie. Oh, yes. Yes, I see. Fine. Yes, fine. Thank you very much. You seem pleased about something. Joanne Lai has just had his second coronary. He'll be here in about 12 hours. Good. I knew we'd get to him sooner or later.
Welcome back. And I have to say, Joanne Lai was the Chinese premier, and we finally got him in our clutches. So solid acting, including Robert Wilkie playing the head of the center, superb music, and an excellent treatment enunciating the principle of using somas. So on the Ruehl scale, where first magnitude's best, 10th magnitude worst, the 1971 resurrection of Zachary Wheeler garners a 2.25 rating. Now, watch for it on The Late Show and see if you concur with my assessment. Now, in my column, I actually wrote about somas. I called them somatoids. Specifically, somatoids hold the key to immortality. And there's two ways in which this can be done now that we've deciphered the human genome consisting of 3 billion units. We could create these somas and then extract organs from them for someone who's dying and needs those organs, or the dying individual's brain could be transferred to the body of the somatoid. Either way, we could achieve immortality. Now, we don't have the technological ability to do that now, but in the future, 10, 20, or 30 years from now, I think it's possible. I should point out we have some individuals that are now cryonically frozen, hoping to be revivified, and the use of somatoids would be one way to bring them back to life. Sounds like science fiction, but again, I point out, today's science fiction often becomes tomorrow's science fact. Yes. Now it's time for the realm of bizarre news, and we start off with a three-eyed fish down in Venezuela. You may recall back in 1990 on The Simpsons, Homer Simpson worked at the nuclear power plant and found a three-eyed fish named Blinky. Fast forward to 2011, and down at Cordova, Venezuela, at a nuclear power plant, They have found a wolffish with 3 eyes. We don't know if he's born with that mutation or if that developed after his exposure to radioactive waters. But a 3-eyed fish now exists. How about that? Yes. Now, what about those cadaver stealers in China? In China, they have what's called the ghost wedding for a young man who's died before marriage. So he will not journey to the afterlife alone. He is married, hypothetically, to a dead woman. And then they're buried together for that journey in the afterlife. Well, grave robbers have been stealing female cadavers, cleaning them up and dressing them up, and then selling them for the ghost weddings. They've just been arrested. They actually stole 10 cadavers, earned $39,000. I think it's a very intriguing concept, the ghost wedding. And now we travel to Maryland, where down in Butlersville, they were going to have their annual barn dance. But the barn was filled with tons of bat guano. Yes, they took 7 hours trying to clean it up, 6 men. They finally gave up, and the annual barn dance had to be canceled due to bat guano. Darn! 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 Now, that ends the realm of bizarre news. Let's see if we have time for an entry from the Vault of Strange Deaths. It says, don't pay attention to your boss. This pertains to a winery worker up in Lodi, California. His boss told him to check the fluid levels in this colossal vat. But he fell in and drowned in wine. Yes, drowned in wine. Now, I don't know if we have any winery workers out there, but if we do, and your boss tells you, check the fluid levels, tell him, do it yourself, buddy. And if he gives you any flack whatsoever, have him contact me and I'll put him in his place. We can't afford to lose even one of you out there. We're in a fierce ratings competition. Now, until next time, may the power of the cosmos be with you. Yes, yes.
Wow.